John Collins is a retired Army Sergeant Major and financial readiness advocate with nearly 3 decades of service, most of it in special operations. A graduate of Boston University, Ranger School, the Defense Language Institute, the Special Forces Qualification Course, and Stanford Graduate School of Business, John built his career in high-performance environments where preparation, discipline, and long-term thinking were essential. Throughout his service, he observed a recurring challenge. Many capable military professionals lacked clear, practical guidance on how to fully leverage the financial benefits they had earned. Recognizing that confusion, not irresponsibility, often led to unnecessary stress and missed opportunities, John made it his mission to simplify complex financial topics into straightforward, actionable strategies. His writing translates complicated systems into real-world guidance military families can immediately apply. John retired from the Army in 2025 and lives in Idaho with his wife and 2 sons.
Welcome to the MilCom Founders Podcast, where we champion and celebrate military community business founders. In each episode, we will talk with a MilCom business founder, learn how they work through various obstacles and opportunities in business and in life. I'm your host, Rob Loches. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome, everyone. Today on the MilCom Founders Podcast, we get to champion and celebrate John Collins, while hopefully educating and inspiring other military community founders. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Look forward to our conversation here today. So, John, what's your ideal morning look like?
So I retired last year, so now I get to kind of do what I want, which is very, very different for the last few decades. I tend to still get up early, kind of like that. That's still a holdover from the military. So I'll get up, go to the gym, come back home. But what's nice about this, I have 2 younger boys, so I like to get back home about the time that they're waking up. So I'll sit and help out with their breakfast, feeding our dogs, get them on their way to school. I'll drive with them to school. And it's just nice to be able to have that kind of pause, break, and time to be able to spend with the family.
Absolutely. You've earned it through your years of service and commitment to our country. Thank you so much for that. That's for sure.
Thank you.
So, John, why in the world did you ever join this crazy thing called the military, the U.S. Army? How did that ever?
So it, it's kind of a winding route to get there. So kind of like you, family, served in the military. My dad was in the Air Force. My brother joined the Army, the 82nd Airborne, right out of high school. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot when I was a kid in high school, but I had terrible vision. And this is before like LASIK and LASIX and everything were like very popular, and I think they even allow it for a pilot. So I ended up just going into college. Very fortunate, early decision, early admission. So I only applied to one school. Got there, spent the 4 years at school, and I was very lucky. I played 2 sports there. So I was never going to go professional. I was never going to, be in the World Cup, but I was able to.
Where'd you go? What'd you play?
So Boston University, and then I was on the rugby team and the ski team, which was slalom giant self. And
Okay.
my friend Ben, who I mentioned in the book, very thoughtful guy, very fortunate to be friends with him. He brought up the way he was raising his kids. He told me this about 15 years ago, and I kind of just stumbled into it myself. But he always wanted his boys to play one team sport, one individual sport. So you understand team dynamics, the importance of being part like a team member, but then also that autonomy and self-reliance and something that like it is you versus whatever that is, track, the swimming, whatever. I kind of happened into that. He was much more like pragmatic and thoughtful about how he approached it. But those two things kind of helped form my thought process. So later on, when I was about to graduate from college, it's time to get a job and get a grown-up job. And again, like I said, my brother had been in the military. He, at that point, was down in PA school, physician's assistant school in Texas. But my freshman year, during spring break, I went down and saw him graduate the Q course, Special Forces Qualification course. As Green Beret, I watched him walk across the stage, and that obviously made an impact on me. So as I was getting ready to graduate, thought again about, okay, well, I couldn't be a helicopter pilot, but maybe I can do something. Like, let this put off like the real world for a little bit, and let's, kind of continue this, adventure.
Uh-huh.
And so I talked to him, worked through, I flew down to Texas because he had a buddy of his that he was in the 82nd with when he first joined, who was a recruiter, to make sure I kind of got what I wanted. And I said, I wanted an airborne ranger contract. So nowadays they call them, I think it's an option 40, something 40 contract. Back then it was just simply airborne ranger.
Yeah.
I was able to get that. So a little while later, a couple months later, I was down at Fort Benning, Georgia, and then started that whole process.
So you went through four years of Boston University, great school, great education, and then you decided I'm going to enlist in our army.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And the plan so the plan was to do like a 3-year, 17-week contract, be a ranger, toughen up, do some adventures. And then I was going to go to grad school. I was going to go down back to Texas, probably UT Austin. But then I'd kind of get on with life. But the Army's funny that way. So they kept giving these like little options, and things were always kind of enticing. So instead of getting out at the 3-year mark, they had a thing called the BEAR program, and I couldn't tell you what it stands for anymore. But it was the low density, like undermanned MOSs in the Army. They needed people to go to them. So I ended up being able to go out to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, to learn a language. And I didn't know how the job was going to be because you switch over to military intelligence. So instead of like an infantryman in the Ranger Battalion, I was going to be an MI guy.
Okay.
Very different. But I had 2 friends that had done that before me, and they were still in the language school. And I called them up and I asked them how it was. And they said, we have no idea how this job is going to be, but Monterey is amazing. And no matter how bad it is, it's worth it to be in Monterey. And it turned out the job was not bad at all.
Yeah.
But being in Monterey is a pretty amazing place. So I did that for a little bit. And then I ended up eventually getting my way to the Q course, just like my older brother, 18 Delta. So Special Forces medic like him. And then stayed in for many years longer.
Wow. Well, thank you again. That's amazing. So, as you're serving in the military, I gotta believe you learned a thing or two about leadership. And share with me 1 or 2 stories about things that have stuck with you from then till now, that's core to leading yourself, funny enough, like an individual sport, or leading others like your family or a team or whatever the case may be.
So what, as again, I know I'm saying lucky and fortunate a lot, but I was, so I have to acknowledge that. One of my good friends, who I was in Ranger Regiment, I think when I was a specialist and he was a PFC, he ended up rising through the ranks and became the regimental sergeant major. So the command sergeant major of the Ranger Regiment.
Mhm.
And, we kept in touch, but what I learned from him, was that you have to care about your people. And I learned this from a lot of other leaders as well, but he said it very succinctly, actually in a podcast not that many weeks ago, that you have to care for your people and it has to be genuine, or else no one's going to follow you. Like from the outside, people that are in the military think, well, you just say, do this and they're going to do that. And that maybe a week. And we all know leadership, that people follow leaders that they want to follow. So if you don't care about the people that you're leading, then they're not going to want to work for you. And there's times where you have to be very clear, like, hey, this mission is more important than any of us, but I want us all to do well. And you demonstrate that care by making sure everyone is as prepared as is possible in advance of that thing that is going to be very difficult.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Understood. Okay.
There's also some examples, some called core leadership over time. And really what I saw those as, it came down to a lack of trust of the people that you're in charge of. And so, people talk about micromanaging, but typically, why does someone micromanage? Like if they're a capable, competent person, um, and it's not necessarily a lack of trust in their own abilities, you'll get that too, where like they don't think they could do it, so they don't believe that you could do it. I think more commonly seen is that someone just doesn't believe in the people they have, which means they didn't, more likely than not, invest the time to make them and mentor them and make them into the person that they are capable of being. So if you have to sit there and watch over someone do all their job, then you clearly don't trust them. And the other important aspect of that is you should always kind of do the job that only you can do. And if you're doing someone's job that you're supervising, then you're not doing the job of supervision. And so you're letting down the bigger machine.
Yep. Got it. So you stayed in for, was it 24 years or
28 years.
28 years? Wow. Fantastic. Okay. So somewhere along the way, how did you decide that financial readiness was so important for the troops? How did that come about?
Well, I've always been a fan of not being poor. And so it was important for me. I started investing probably about like year 3 or 4 when I was in the military. And I allude to it in the book. Like, I didn't know the TSP existed. It had, but I just didn't know about it. I think there was a lot of people in that boat. And so I think it was Transamerica funds back then that I started with. But I wanted to put money into something. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was important to like grow my cash because, my parents were avid savers, but not investors. And I knew that money had not grown as quickly as it could have. So I wanted to invest. As I went forward, years and years later, after plenty of missteps, putting money into places that either weren't a great idea to put money into, or with the wrong financial house, not Transamerica, but some others that had just like in terrible like management fees that triple your savings or triple your investment, your earnings over time. I got to a point where a friend of mine and I were in the hallway and we were just talking and we had a finance section. So we just wandered down there and we asked our guy, Ed, who was brilliant on this kind of stuff, what are we doing wrong? How do we do this better? And it's a 15-minute conversation. You're like, oh boy, we have been messing this up. So we talked to him. We were doing the right things, but not quite the right way. And there was a lot of like optimization that we could have done. And so we talked to Ed. He was kind enough just before a deployment that was coming up, got together the group of us that were deploying and gave us a class on, here's the TSP, here's how you invest in it, here's some other things. And so across the board, we leveled that knowledge base, at least on some basic fundamentals. People could do with it what they want, but at least the information was there. And so then a couple of years later, before deployment, I gave essentially the same class to a bunch of us that were deploying. Then a couple of years after that, while deployed, there was a small platoon of Rangers. And so I asked, hey, could I talk to them about, finance, investing, TSP, et cetera. They were kind enough to let me come in, talk to them for maybe an hour or so. And then after the fact, a few of them came up to me and just said, hey, thank you so much. I didn't understand this. I didn't understand the power of them. And then I was able to deploy with there was a group of Rangers out during a deployment. So, having that background, I went and spoke to their leadership, asked if I could give them a short class on finance, money, compound interest, and just the fundamentals. And they were kind enough to let me come in. I spoke to them for about an hour. Nothing too crazy, question and answer. But after the fact, a bunch of them came up to me and just said, thank you. This made a difference. I didn't understand X, Y, or Z. And so my thought process was, well, that's awesome. If I made a difference in one of those guys' lives, like that's great. If a few of them benefit, that's even better. How do I reach more of that? And so I kind of came up with the idea. I was like, gosh, I should probably write this down. And I says, well, I'll write a book. And it took a while to get the book together. but I wanted to write the book so I could reach them in mass. Like, in business, you always say scale.
Let me ask. So how long ago did you teach that class to that small platoon of Rangers?
That was 2022.
2022, so not that long ago. And so then your question became, you found that this is valuable and important to people. And then how did the idea of coming to write the book come about? Where was that linchpin? Or when did you start?
So that really was it. Like those couple of Rangers coming up to me after the fact and saying that was beneficial to them. I immediately realized like I can't do this and help out everyone in the regiment. Certainly not like somebody in the 82nd Airborne by going and talking to 25 people at a time. But if I created something and wrote it down and made it accessible, then I could actually help out a lot more people. So
Wow.
I started writing during that deployment. It was obviously a very slow process. There was other work to get done that takes priority. And then the retirement process itself has just involved. So it took me longer to get it done than I would have hoped. But I also had an editor who helped me out tremendously and kept me kind of focused, made sure that like the underlying message was never lost, but it never became kind of obfuscated through many words either.
So did you actually start writing the book back in 2022?
I did, yeah.
Wow. And then you stuck with it until, when's it getting published?
In a week. So I don't know, it's about May 12th. So
May 12th. Okay. Well, it'll be right around then. So that is fantastic timing, actually. And then John, as you went forward from 2022 to starting to write this book, you mentioned an editor. Who was that? How did you find that? How did it work?
okay, so I had a chaplain who I knew who had written 2 or 3 books, and he had mentioned something about the book writing process on a Signal chat that I was on. So I reached out to him and said, "Hey, would you mind talking about looking at and thinking about just self-publishing? What's kind of the benefits of doing it with someone professionally?" And he laid out for me because he had done some publishing. He had done with like a publisher that was not quite as good, and then someone that was quite good, which was Kristen. So he introduced me to her. But I think having someone that does this professionally, especially when I'm in the middle of the retirement process, it's like someone that can keep you on track, keep you focused, make sure that the message is never lost, will help out greatly. And since this is like, just a one-person show, having someone else to bounce these ideas off of was great, beneficial.
Fantastic. And so the book's going to be published 4 years after the original idea all said. And it's interesting for me that you turned to the military community to help you write that book. Not the pastor, but the man of faith who helped you figure that out. Chaplain, sorry.
Yeah.
The chaplain and everybody put you in touch with Kristen, and then you got the book written. So congratulations. So what's the title of the book? This almost to me sounds like a labor of love that you stuck with this and you made this happen.
So the title is Your Pay, which we'll play off of the My Pay website. The military uses, and it was just something where I think every human being, in terms of like you want to pass on the wisdom, the knowledge that you've gathered over a lifetime, right? That's what we normally do with our children. Teachers do this. That if you have kind of hard-learned knowledge or hard-earned knowledge,
Sure.
you almost feel like it's a waste not to pass it on. And so for me, this was that opportunity. Someone can start with the power of compound interest 15 years sooner than I had investing intelligently. They're going to be so much better off. And again, like I always say, money should not be the end state, right? Money is just a representation of value. People that are getting money just to have money are kind of missing the point, but money provides you opportunity. And so giving people that opportunity that takes that stress off of them for what's down the road is greatly beneficial.
Yep. So let me take a step back, John. This is a labor of love. You decided to write this book. How do you benefit from writing the book?
Um, well, we'll see how sales go.
Okay.
But truthfully, like just by having gotten, those few Rangers that came up and said that they benefited from it, that makes me feel like I did something right. If someone reads this book and they say,
Mhm.
hey, that helped me, we had stress in the marriage, or it's just, oh, now I kind of have a better idea of like how money works, how, finance works, how much I was spending on my used car because I didn't talk about, I wanted to find out what my monthly payment was versus what the rate was. Any of those things benefit me. And frankly,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be sitting around at night doing something, especially during that retirement time frame. By writing the book, I'm doing something that's beneficial and worthwhile rather than,
Yeah.
sitting and binge watching whatever show.
It's amazing, John. What I love is the heart of the veteran or the military professional such as yourself. So often we find ways to give back. So many of us to give back to our community, to the veteran community, to the military community as a whole. And to me, this is your very unique and powerful way to give back to the community. I know Kristen's going to do a great job for you in promoting the book, and I want to get more into the book. But later on, we'll have to come back to how do we champion and celebrate John Collins and his book, your book, to help sales of it, help awareness of it. So we'll come back to that later. But with the book, who's the key audience? It's active duty military, I'm sure. Yep, young, young enlisted, or just everybody in between. Where's the story with your ICP here?
I like to think everyone could benefit, but truthfully, like when I wrote it, it was with like younger military personnel in mind, enlisted officer. Really, it's just somebody that's starting out on their financial journey so that they have, and the reason why I didn't mind that it took 4 years to write is because I'm really focusing on principles and fundamentals, not like the newest thing. So I'm not telling you how to, oh, this is Bitcoin versus Doge or whatever. This is how investing works. This is how interest rates affect you. This is investing across the spectrum. Those things, generally speaking, won't change. And by someone having a grasp of that earlier in their career, they can do more with that. And again, if you have, kind of like a set it and forget it mindset for, I'm investing X amount of money at the beginning of the month. I'm happy with where it's going. I'm doing dollar cost averaging. I'm not trying to day trade. I just want to be comfortable later. That takes that off your plate. And so that lets people focus more on what's important to them. So young military people probably should be focused on, military things, but on their weekends, not having to worry about, oh, well, I need to do some side gig, letting them enjoy themselves. And part of it is, I used a couple analogies over the course of the book. One is this because, things are not immediate in finance. Typically, if something's immediate, there's usually side effects and a whole lot of them. So, it is a long process to do it like well, same thing with like an analogy of a map, right? So you have to have 2 points on the map for it to be worthwhile. Otherwise, it's just a pretty picture. One of the first chapters is just like a snapshot of where you are financially. So people can kind of understand what's coming in, what's going out. It's not really budgeting. It's just understanding like how you spend money. And that allows you to see where you are at that point. And then every individual is different. They can figure out where they want to get to, figure out what is important to them. Because not everyone needs, 5 million in the bank and, a house in Vail and a house, over on a lake in Geneva. But if they know what they want to have, then you got your 2 points on the map. And now you can figure out a way to get there. Same thing. You might know where you want to get to, but if you have no idea where you are, again, relatively worthless. So by letting people have that kind of snapshot into where they stand financially now, and then start making decisions about where they want to go, that'll be very, very helpful. It's going to change where they want to end up.
Yeah.
What I wanted when I was 25 should change by the time I'm like 40, I would hope. That's relative, but at least you understand, generally speaking, those things don't normally change overnight.
Yeah.
It's a slower process. And so you can change that map with you.
Yep. It really reminds me of what you're providing is you are providing that roadmap and or the chart. I'm a coder, so don't hold that against me. But hey, if you're off by 1 degree, I know that's the name of our business, but
Yeah.
if you're off by 1 degree, you end up in the wrong port, or you're on a shoal, or gosh knows what. This is like a roadmap, and what I see is that you're providing financial leadership. You're helping to get people financially ready. And it's so analogous to what we do. It's just unbelievable for the founders. Gosh, I got so many questions running through my mind. Go ahead. Let me ask you, what else should we know about the book? While I regroup on my 5 thoughts running in my head.
So I would say the book probably is a mile wide and 6 inches deep. So I'm not looking to.
Yep.
If you want to learn about like economics, you can go get a PhD and study this for 12 years. Same thing for finance, same thing for any of it. But what was more important to me was that people are aware of the options out there. So, you have the baseline understanding of like how money works, how finance works, understanding the opportunities that are available to you as a service member, and then making the decision that's right for you. At the end of every chapter, there's a bevy of podcasts, books, YouTube channels, whatever it is that like I encourage people to go look at, because if someone is dedicated to like how to optimize a TSP, they're going to do a much better job than I am in one chapter explaining how to sign up for it and start investing. So figure out the thing that matters to you and then pursue that. And the other thing I would say that's kind of important to me in this whole undertaking was it doesn't have to be perfect to start. Like, start the investment journey, develop some habits you can always change. So kind of like, again, the map analogy, make a cone, like, 1 degree off matters, but if you can kind of, like orient yourself to a couple checkpoints along the way, you can get yourself back on track. But if you don't start, you're getting nowhere. So I would rather people start imperfectly and then say, what, I don't like the G fund for the TSP, understandably. If you don't like all your money going into that, great, change it. But at least start, because now you at least have the money going in every month. And now you figure out a better thing to do with it. So again, like you're going to start, it's never going to be perfect. Anything you do is going to be imperfect, but it needs to at least have some motion going forward.
Yeah. It's really funny because we have resources on the back page of every one of our chapters as well. But for you, because you're not a CFP or these young men and women that are going to read your book, where do they go if in the back of those resources of each chapter, it's not enough for them? They need that financial leadership coach. Where do they go? Who do they turn to? How would you share with them what they need to do?
So I think it's almost like a network effect. So first, they're going to figure out, I think you read through it, some things speak to you, some things speak to me. I like the idea of private or public equities, right? I want to trade stock, not day trade necessarily, but I want to invest in stocks. The TSP doesn't quite work out for me. So there's a bevy of things to look at there, but I would say the most important thing is to ensure whoever they're speaking to is a fiduciary, right? So they have to act in their best interest, not in that company's best interest. And as they do research, more information will come available to them. They'll be able to kind of sift through to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. If something's too good to be true, I think we know how that usually ends. But having someone that's in your corner and talking to someone that has a legal obligation to ensure that you're doing as well as you can is very important.
That's right. Will you have either now or in the future, will you have a list of fiduciaries that they may want to talk with, or how does that look?
I may in the future. I don't right now. I have a website that I'm building, so we'll see if I can get that on there. There's a bunch of things that I want to build into that.
Sure.
But I think really my my goal is for people to at least start executing the fundamentals and the basics, and then from there grow. And I think they'll from there be able to find the right people. And again, the word of mouth, once you demonstrate to, like if you're in Trade 3, you're a platoon sergeant or your company commander probably knows somebody. And then if they can vouch for them, you test it out, figure it out, see if it's the right person for you. But if it's like a real estate agent,
Right.
it's a marriage. I mean, you got to make sure that it's the right person for you.
Yeah, it's funny because we named one degree because life's about 1 degree relationships. How do we find them, get them, and build them? And it's so much an important ethos within the whole military community. In fact, John, you and all the young badasses that I work with, of veteran business founders, are part of the reason why I started taking care of myself again. 7 years ago, I went and taught financial leadership to a group of veteran founders. I said, holy shit, why am I so fat? Why am I so out of shape? And I said, I shouldn't be. Who's going to listen to me? And I started taking care of myself again, and so I want to say thank you to each and every veteran that's out there for helping me, realize that we got to take care of ourselves before we take care of the others, as we all know that story. That's for sure. So, and John, we're running short on time. What questions have I not asked you yet that's important for all these veteran business founders out there that will listen to you? What questions should have I asked you so they can learn?
Mike, I think we probably addressed it already, but you have to understand what's important to you. So going through like these founders, because I love the Silicon Valley like model of fail fast, right?
Sure.
They celebrate it out there, which is fantastic because you try something, it doesn't work, you move on. Yeah, every aspect of the military that doesn't work as well. So there's got to be some common sense in there. But in business, I think it's absolutely okay to fail, especially if you do it early. Like figure out what doesn't work.
That's right.
I always tell people because I always make a little at the end of the book. I say, go talk to a special operations recruiter, see if there's something you want to do. Don't live your life kind of doing what if I had tried this? And one of the most important things I would say to people is never self-deselect, because I think when people go to a selection process, so again, the Rangers is now it's RASP when it was RIP, the Ranger Indoctrination Program. And a lot of people fail that. After you go to the Special Forces Qualification Course or SFAS, a lot of people don't make it. And the problem is if you don't make it, you don't want to approach that as I'm not good enough. You just look at that as if this is not the right job for me. I am not a good fit for whatever reason. And it's the same in business. That I think people need to not try to change who they are fundamentally to fill a role. Need to be able to say, this is who I am. I am comfortable doing this. And if you're not the right person for a job, it's not that you're not good enough. It's just you're not the right person. And being okay with that is incredibly helpful.
Yeah. So what organizations are you reaching out to like IVMF or, these big financial institutions that deal with the military? Where are you reaching out to help, and how can I help you get in touch with some of these people that I might know? What's the best way to do that? Have you thought about that model?
I have not reached out to anyone. My focus is getting the book finished. And so
Sure.
that's really where we got. And then the next step in that puzzle is finishing up the website. I think once those things are aligned, then we can start getting, but frankly, if people can skip over me altogether to get to the right spot, I'm also comfortable with that. It shouldn't be the crux of it. It should be getting people financially ready so that they can focus on the task at hand, which the military needs to be able to be able to focus and do their jobs. And so not worrying about money is a big part of that.
That's right. Both for themselves out in the field or wherever they are and their families,
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. 100%. Well, I do have some organizations we can talk offline, or I can make some introductions to and see if if they need or want to buy a bulk purchase to help their subscribers, their members, their whoever. That's for sure. So I'd be happy to do that. John, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. John, we're going to donate $100 to the MilCom Founders Fund, Scholarship Fund. So each year we raise capital to help military families send their kids to college, and that'll be done in your name. So thank you so much for all that you do for us in the community. I think what's really really inspiring about this is that once again, like so many other veterans, you're giving back to give back with no direct expectation of how you're going to get back. But you see a need and you're stepping in the gap and providing that map, that chart, that way forward. And I really find that very inspiring. So thank you for that today. I really appreciate that.
Well,
So-
thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on the MilCom Founders Podcast. If you know a MilCom founder with a story to share, reach out to us at milcomfounders.com. For each guest on our show, One Degree Financial donates $100 to the Dick Floges Veteran Entrepreneur Scholarship Fund, supporting education for children of a MilCom business owner. Stay ready.